Hi, I'm Susanna Bowling, and this is live from the Hotel Edison, Times Square Chronicles Presents. As you well know, one of my favorite shows this year is Real Women Have Curves. And today we're with a first-time producer on this show, but his credits go back a long ways, Jack Noseworthy. Jack, let's start off with your credits first. How did you get involved in theater, film, TV?
Oh my goodness. Well, I started performing very young in my church choir, and then performed in amateur shows throughout school and throughout high school. I got a undergrad degree at the Boston Conservatory, and then I went on in the senior year of my senior year, the second semester of my senior year, I got a national tour of the Broadway show Cats. I graduated from college on the road with a tour of a Broadway show, and then I did multiple Broadway shows for a long time. And
What was your first?
so Cats was the tour. My first show was Jerome Robbins Broadway. Yeah. And then I went out to Los Angeles and started doing film and television. So I'd been doing that for about 30 plus years.
Now, what made you get into producing a Broadway musical?
So I really had a strong understanding of the advantages that I had just being born a male and a Caucasian person. And I had come to a point in my career where I realized I'd worked with everyone from Jerome Robbins to John Waters and everyone in between, and I felt a real need to give back. And part of the way I give back is that I felt like I could create opportunities for other people, perhaps people that didn't have the opportunities that I had. So I formed a production company called Noseworthy Productions with my husband and my partner and my business partner, Sergio Trujillo. And together we started optioning intellectual property that we were turning into Broadway shows. So we had some early success with a couple of things that we decided.
Oh, so this isn't your first
It's the
producing?
first job. It's the first show that has come to Broadway.
Ah, okay.
But we produced a show at the ART called Arabal with Gustavo Santaolalla that John Riedman wrote, and then we've now optioned and picked up a couple of other projects along the way. And then as the company has expanded and continued to grow, this is the first one out of the gate that has landed on Broadway. So
I love this show. It has such heart and soul, and it's well put together. I saw it again for the second time, and I cried harder.
oh, thank you.
What do you look for when producing a show?
Yeah. So as I'm really trying to figure out like what our brand is, and as it's gradually growing, one of the main things I look for is something that is commercially viable but socially relevant. I've always worked in the commercial theater, and when I was doing film and television, I was working for movie studios and television studios, and so I made an independent movie here and there, but really it just seemed like my career was in the commercial world.
The mainstream.
Yeah, mainstream. It just happened to be the jobs I got, right?
Hey,
And
that's
so
not a bad thing.
yeah, no, it's right.
Sadly to say, that's where the money is.
Yeah, and so those were the relationships that I developed, and those were the skills that I developed by working as an actor. And so when I shifted to producing and wanted to be able to create opportunities for other people, I really like our mission is to do things that are commercially viable and socially relevant. And so all the other things that we are working on are that, and this show in particular really struck me when I'd seen the movie, and then and I did a little research, and then I didn't know it was a play, and I read Josefina Lopez's play, and the play really tells the story about immigrants and undocumented workers, and between that and what the movie created, which was this incredibly authentic piece of film that has been in the Academy Museum as one of the most important movies made in the last 50 years. I really felt like the two together were exactly at the center of my mission. And when I first met with Josefina to option the material, Josefina said to me, she said she'd always wanted it to be a musical, so she was thrilled that I'd approached her, and she said she'd seen her play done I don't know how many times, 50 times around the country in high schools and regional theaters and amateur theaters all around the country. And she said, I know in the first 3 minutes if the director thought of it as a comedy or a drama. And she said, I wrote a comedy. She said, please make it funny. And
It is funny.
it's very funny. And so anytime we were in the developmental process when we were talking with the creative team, which includes Lisa Loomer and Nell Benjamin, and of course now our Tony nominees, Joy Huerta and Benjamin Velez, and then having someone to anchor our show like Justina Machado, who's also nominated for a Tony, we really leaned into the adversity that these women face in the factory and the challenges that they have. They deal with them through humor. And so you really connect to them because it doesn't matter if you're a Latina or if you're a man or a woman or LGBTQ plus or any disenfranchised community that has been faced with adversity, you connect to the characters. And the fact that they deal with it through humor, which is exactly what Josefina requested of me when I optioned the material, is what the audience is really responding to. So.
No, I loved interviewing her. She and I kind of bonded.
Oh, nice.
I wish and I hope. Do you have plans to tour this show?
Yeah, we absolutely know that the show is going to play very, very well throughout the country. So, yeah.
It needs to play in LA.
Of course. I mean, that's the genesis of where the show takes place. So, certainly playing in Los Angeles would be, ideal. So.
Well, the reason I say this is I'm from California.
Okay.
And my generation of Californians, we grew up knowing that we were going to get X, Y, and Z at certain times in our lives. And my generation didn't get the version of babysitting, of mowing the lawns, of bagging groceries, of being a busboy, because that's when the Mexican migration into California came. So everybody from my generation did not learn how to make money, did not learn how. We tried fast food restaurants. Like, we learned that we couldn't get jobs at like 12, 13, 14, and 15, where our parents had, and it was kind of a way of growing up. So for a lot of us, and I'm not the only one, I'm just more vocal about it. For a lot of us, we resented it because this was taken away from us and we didn't even understand why. And in seeing your show, I got to see a different perspective, one that none of us saw. And I think that's part of the problem with immigration and what's going on, is that we're not allowed to speak how we feel so that we can communicate and have open dialogues and change our opinions and be able to have compassion, because we're not allowed to have that anymore. It's become some kind of political unrest. And I think what your show does without being manipulative, which is thank you, because I hate when shows try to manipulate my brain, you just presented facts and let me come to my own conclusion. And both times I cried. I cried a lot. So I think your show is incredibly powerful and has a lot to say.
Thank you. I mean, the conversation that we have in the show, the fact that that is initially, as I said, what made me think that it was a musical, is because, you have to have the highs and the lows, and you have to have, there needs to be something substantial and struggle that people are going through, and then, conquering it and overcoming it. And that I think is incredibly important to our story. And I'm very happy to hear that folks are able to have a digestible conversation around immigration, because we could have never guessed that we were at the zeitgeist of the conversation right now. I mean, I optioned this 5 years ago.
I would not have thought this in any way, shape, or form. I was very anti-immigration because of what I saw was happening. But your show literally changed my mind to a brand new conversation.
That's wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that.
No, yeah. People are afraid to speak what they think. I'm not exactly that afraid. If people don't like me, I'm so sorry. But there's other fishies in the sea, go swim. But I think that this show definitely, I want to see it succeed so badly, because I think it has such a message that people need to hear.
Thank you. Of course, I do as well, and we're doing well. I mean, I think you've seen the show twice, so you see the audience reaction.
The second time it was even more, and I saw it the day that the Tony nominations came out.
Oh, that must have been a good
And-
show. Yeah.
oh, it was a great show.
Yeah.
The audience from moment one was on your side.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
been
thrilling to watch.
Yeah, the support we've received from the community has been really, really wonderful, and people are just like, I mean, I've had other, producers email us and text us, and various directors and friends and people that I barely know have reached out to me through various channels, even if it's on Instagram. If I don't know them, to say, I just saw your show, it's fantastic, congratulations, and that's it's really special to know that my contemporary theater makers, both as producers and writers and directors, are responding so positively and understand the challenges of putting a show up on Broadway, and saying, not just good job, but great job, and how incredibly important it is what you're doing, and continue doing it. And so for us, of course, I want to see it succeed, and so when you go to that theater and you see what's happening in that theater and you see the audience respond, and then of course they're all going to tell their friends, right? And so telling their friends to
everyone I know loves this show.
Yeah, that's what happens. And so the word of mouth on our show is better than any show I've ever been involved in. And I was on the call this morning with a colleague who said, I don't think a show has ever received as good of word of mouth as your show. And so that was an unsolicited response from someone, because they're just like, every single person is talking about how great your show is. So.
Because your music was nominated for a Tony, do you guys get to do a number on the Tonys?
So traditionally, it's the shows that are nominated for Best Musical that get to do a number on the Tonys. And so I think, you always try to find a way. And I think the Tony Awards producers and they try to find a way to be inclusive for all the shows, because they do understand that it is a marketing tool, not just for the shows that are nominated, but the shows that are on Broadway. It's a marketing tool for all of Broadway. So that the rule is that you have to be nominated for Best Musical to do a number, but certainly there's multiple conversations around all the shows about how can we help amplify each show so that everyone can use that tool so that your show can be successful.
Well, I hope that your show gets seen, because it really does need to.
Thank you.
What's next on your agenda?
Yeah. So I would really like our show to tour. I think it's really important to get this story out around the country, and then I have a couple of other projects that I'm working on. I'm developing 2 other musicals.
Nice.
Both of them are in early developmental stages. I have a relationship with one of the streamers, and we're developing one of their shows. I'm doing a 29-hour reading of that in June, and then I have another piece of IP that was a novel that I have 2 Tony Award-winning composer and lyricists writing for me.
Nice.
Which is wonderful. I'm not being coy. I'm just
No. I know there's times that you can't talk.
I'm not being coy. I just know that we're along in the developmental stage, but you really want to work with your marketing team and your press team before you make those announcements. But those 2 things are coming along quite well. And then I have one other novel that I optioned. And I have a Tony-winning playwright that's adapting that into a show for me as well. So those things are like stacked up, and they're happening now, right? Like they're happening concurrently as we're working on moving this show forward. So I think for me,
Yeah, your husband is already directing a new show.
Yeah, I mean that all happens at the same time too. So he's got another show coming that he's doing it at the Arena stage. I'm sure he'll tell you about it when you're going to talk to him.
I hope so.
And then he's also doing a 3 performances of Jesus Christ Superstar at the.
Is he directing the Hollywood Bowl?
He is, yeah. So he's.
Oh
directing
my
that.
God! Yeah, because it just came out that Adam
Lambert is doing it.
Yeah.
So he's directing
and
that as
Cynthia
well.
Erivo's playing Jesus.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's playing Magdalene? Did we know yet?
I have no idea. That's not my show.
No, I read yesterday that Adam was doing it, so I was like, oh, good.
Yeah, that's not my show. But so what? I think what's next for me is really finding opportunities so that eventually what I'd really like to do is have my company be solvent, right? So that I'm able to really focus on continuing to develop this material and focus solely on that. I do have to say that very, very proudly that when I transitioned from being an actor, my last show was Come From Away.
Oh, wow.
And I did the Toronto company of Come From Away, and while I was doing that, I was back in school, and I got a master's degree from NYU in performing arts administration. And then I segued that. My producing career was always, that's why I did that. But giving back to the community is incredibly important to me, and it always has been. I came to New York.
Don't you do Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS?
So I came to New York in the late '80s, and I was in this Cats company, and I was a part of. Unfortunately, I saw 5 people from my Cats company die of AIDS, and so that's when Broadway Cares and Equity Fights AIDS were 2 separate organizations.
Right.
And I'd always been a volunteer, giving the appeal from the stage, holding a red bucket. I was part of the leadership council at Broadway Cares. And when I graduated from school, I was wanting to get a letter of recommendation for something. And Broadway Cares very, very kindly said, we don't want to give you a letter of recommendation, we want to give you a job. And so I took that
Nice.
opportunity to be a development officer and a fundraiser. I work at Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS as a development officer and fundraiser because giving back to the community is just incredibly important to me. But I just want to say to you, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, my God, you are so welcome.
Thank you so much for supporting Real Women Have Curves. And,
I love the show.
And please tell people to go and buy tickets. RWHC at Musical is where you can purchase your tickets. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would like to thank my guest, Jack Noseworthy, and seriously, go see Real Women Have Curves. It is one of the best shows I've ever seen. I'm Susanna Bowling, but I want to thank Magda Katz for videoing us and always making us look good, for Ramel Gopez and the Hotel Edison for giving us a place to talk and be safe. I'm Susanna Bowling, and this is live from the Hotel Edison. Times Square Chronicles presents.